Hello everybody and welcome back to Let's Build Lightsabers. I am Zach, and as you can see, I've made a fair amount of progress on this lightsaber project. In fact, the first saber is in essence finished. There's a little bit of paint touch-up that needs to happen before the convention, but aside from that, it's good to go. I've got it disassembled here in front of me so that you can see all the components. My plan today is to put it together for you. I'll talk about all the pieces that go into it, and you'll really be able to see how it works, and you'll get to see the finished product at the end. So let's start right here in the middle with the main piece of the hilt, the grip area. This is made from a 1 1/4 inch PVC sink pipe that I picked up. About $4 for that. This was modified a little bit, cut off and drilled, all that kind of stuff, painted. And then I added some pieces here to make it into a more comfortable working grip. It's got some foam pieces that are stuck on. They're sort of furniture grippers or something like that. Then we've got these little slits of aluminum, these little strips of aluminum, I should say, that got stuck on the outside as well between the grips, just to make it look a little bit better. A little piece of leather here that I had laying around as well to cover up a couple of gaps. And then you can see some screws sticking out. You'll see why those are there here in just a moment. Now, attached to those, or that, I should say, are these two little guys here, the two end pieces. First is the blade holder emitter piece, whatever you'd like to call it. It's made from two separate electrical conduit components that I've found that are screwed together and modified and painted as well. That gives a place for the blade to sit down in, and it's going to hold the blade straight and not let it fall crooked as it's sitting down in the hilt itself. Those two pieces together, about $1. Actually, probably even less than $1. Other side, the pommel, another piece of electrical conduit component there, a bit of plastic on the end to cover the gap because that was open. And then actually this little metal slug, this little metal sink piece that I found and picked up, I grabbed that and put it in here simply because when I first assembled this saber, because it had a long blade on it, it was very top heavy, so I needed to add some more weight in the pommel. Altogether, that piece is about $2, mostly because of that metal piece there. And then the last little cosmetic or body piece is this little, well, I'll call it a switch holder because that's why I have it. It's for the button to sit down in. It raises the button up and gives it clearance to fit inside this narrow hilt. It actually is a little switch component or a cover or something for an electrical component. About 50 cents, I would say, for that little guy. Then the electrical components, we'll start with the housing. Actually, I switched housings, I think, from the last video. This is one that screws together. It makes it a little bit more convenient for me to use. And it's screwed into this small piece of PVC component. Got this because this allows me to mount this down inside the blade. And then the wires for the LED are sticking out the bottom. Of course, the LED and the optics are down inside that as well. Let's see, the housing was $9, the LED was $4, and the optics were less than $1 or so. So not particularly expensive there. Those tie into the rest of the electronics. You've seen these already, but I'll show them to you again really quick. We've got the show-off little chrome lighted button. That's a $5 extravagance, we'll call it. Not necessary for this project. I could have used a cheapo button, but I like the way it looked. It's attached to the Buck Puck driver, which is about $9 for that little guy. A little bit of wiring on there as well. Quick disconnect attached to one end, which connects to the battery pack here, which right now is a 2 times AAA battery pack with a quick connect. I'd like to switch this out with a AA battery pack. Just to get some more longevity out of the batteries. The problem with that is that AA's are, of course, a little bit bigger, so I've got to find a way to fit them into this hilt. We'll see if I can make that happen. If not, the AA's work fine. They just run out faster. And then we've got these little components here. Color discs that I've cut out, color filters, actually, that are going to sit down inside to give color to the blade here. This is an Ultra Saber Initiate style blade, so it's this little short one. I'm just using that for demonstration purposes. The final product has a full 32-inch blade in it. This guy was $5, actually. I got a good deal on it. Ultra Sabers was doing a grab bag on I forgot. I think they called them slightly wrong blades or something like that. Blades that have a little nick or something in them somewhere. So they're not 100% perfect. If this was a show blade, that'd be a problem. But since this is a relatively inexpensive prop, this was perfect for me. I got a bunch of these for all of the blades, or all of the sabers that I'm building. I've got a few little screws and, of course, my tools to put everything together. So that is it. Altogether, we came in at, I would estimate, between $50 and $60. I apologize, I didn't keep all of my receipts, so I can't give you an exact price. If I left out the fancy chrome light-up button and didn't use quite as many screws, I could probably get that price down to $50 or maybe even below it, to be honest with you. But I wanted to add a few pieces on here to make it look a little bit better. So I think we're closer to $60, but we're definitely not at $60. So I think overall, price-wise, I accomplished kind of what I was trying to do with this saber. It definitely doesn't break the bank. It's cheaper than buying pretty much any pre-built saber that I could find online. But more importantly than that, it gave me the chance to build all this, and it's been a ton of fun to work on. I'm sorry I haven't filmed as much of it as I would like, but at least you could see the assembly. Speaking of the assembly, let's get started on that. So first things first, we're going to put the electrical components down inside. So we slide those first through the little button holder. Again, this piece had to be added on because the button, this nice button that I wanted to use, doesn't really fit down into the 1 1/4 inch PVC pipe that I'm using. It sort of does, but there's really no clearance in there. But that just slides right down in there, and that's going to obviously screw onto the hilt itself. Then we can feed all of the components down in. Now, so the hole for them, this can be a little tricky because, of course, the battery needs to go one direction and the rest of the connections need to go another direction. Now, all of this wiring is going to be trimmed down, again, when I finish the touch-up on the paint and get this prop ready for the convention itself. I'm going to cut down on the wiring because right now it's going everywhere. I'm also going to shrink seal all of the solder joints so that there's no risk of them touching or corroding or anything like that. But because I knew I was going to be taking this baby apart a few times, I didn't do that all yet. Reach my finger down in here and pull. Okay, there's my two connectors for the LED. Battery's coming out the pommel end, which is where the battery goes, and then we can slide this on. Now these are slightly catty-cornered. There we go, so that I know which way it lines up. So that's going to line up that way, and in fact, you know what? I'll go ahead and put that on. So that sits right down on top of the hilt. 2 screws, and they're both little Phillips head screws. Now these were originally silver. I painted them black just to make them blend in a little bit better with the hilt. I didn't want to draw attention away from the nice shiny chrome button by adding a couple of chrome screws on there as well. So they're blacked out. Probably need to touch up the paint on both of those, although they're holding up fairly well. Okay, that's attached and on there, so the button is mounted. Push it in there. Clicked a little bit, but that's okay. We've got the electrical components sticking out. Okay, so before I move on to any other pieces, we'll go ahead and connect the LED to the rest of the electronics in here as well. I've got my soldering iron hot, so this should be quick. Okay. Let's see here. And these have been pre-tinned and connected several times at this point, because every time I have to take the saber apart, I have to desolder, I guess we would say, and resolder these two pieces. So I'll probably need to trim both of these and clean them up a little bit, but again, because I know I'm going to be taking this apart a couple more times, I'm not going to do that just yet. These are sort of temporary solders. I could be using, quick connects or something for this, but I'm lazy. That's that's not the best connection, but it should. Well, you know what? I am a little worried about that now that I think about it. I thought it was a little bit better contact than it was. That's better. Okay. So they are connected, and yeah. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and hook up the battery and switch it on, make sure that everything works correctly. So again, the battery's on a little quick connector, just in case I ever need to switch the battery out quickly. Oh yeah, that is working just fine. You know, I'm going to unclip that just in case. I don't want to accidentally turn it on and shine the light directly in my eyes or something like that, because it hurts. I've done it before. Okay, so now we can get the emitter kind of mounted down inside. So this is one problem with using these cheaper like PVC components and stuff, is that while some of it screws together, for the most part it really doesn't. And so it's been kind of custom assembly to get all of it to fit together and stay together. And so it involves a lot of guesstimating and sliding and pushing and hoping and drilling holes and tapping holes and all that good stuff. I think overall it has been successful, but like I said, it's not been the easiest thing in the world to do. And it can be difficult to know which way it lines up, and that is not the right way. It's going to go 180 degrees, like so. And, well, come on. There we go. Okay, so now I've got that in there. For most of the screws on this hilt, I'm actually using these little tiny guys. They're little set screws, and I'm using them because they stay mostly hidden. They go down into the hole, and they don't have a head sticking out on them. So if you're just kind of looking at this blade at a glance, you don't see a bunch of screw heads sticking out, which can definitely look ugly. Now, intentionally, there are some that are sticking out, and you'll see those as we go. Those are, you know, stylistic choices, an attempt to have this saber look more hand-built. You know, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and I like the original series the most, as I think most Star Wars fans do, although not all. I certainly respect certain things about the prequels. There's some things in there that I really, really like. And some of that are the visuals, the visual design that they did in the prequels. There was some cool design work done. One thing I didn't like in the prequels, though, design-wise, were the lightsaber hilts. Well, I won't say they all, but a lot of them looked too nice, too streamlined, too fancy. And that can look good for certain characters. In fact, one of the other saber builds I'm doing in this project is probably going to look a little bit more like that. But I've always been a bigger fan of the really like gritty, home-built, chunked together, custom-made sabers of the original trilogy. You know, Luke and Vader sabers are chunky and industrial looking. So that's sort of the look I was going with this. So that's why there's a few screws sticking out in places, and why I actually ended up having to use this this piece to extend the size for the button. All those kind of things added to the look in the end, and I was really happy with it. So let's see. Next is going to be this emitter piece, which I'm checking the holes to make sure they line up. I think I have it correct. But before I place that on there, of course, we need to get the color in. Now, this was a decision out of, you know what, we'll put them in this, out of frugality. I think that's a word. Trying to save a little money on this, because there are definitely ways to get really nice color in a lightsaber using LEDs. That's what the pros do. They have LEDs that can, you can dial in color on. Basically, 3 up, three LED, one green, one blue, and one red, and then you can program in how much current to put into each one to change the color. That's how Ultra Sabers has such pretty custom colors on theirs. Didn't want to do that. Couldn't afford to do that. We were trying to save money here. Oops. So that is where these color wheels came in to play. it's an option out there for custom sabers. I know Custom Saber Shop sells little color discs that they say you can use. I actually have some of those and wasn't all that happy with the colors I got out of them, but I found the filter book from Lee Filters. Got one of those, and it was great. Had hundreds of colors to choose from, and it wasn't very difficult to cut them down to be able to fit inside there. So there we go. Just attach the emitter to the blade. It's got the color wheels down inside, and we're getting fairly far along as I sit here and jibber jabber. So next we're going to put the battery pack inside. So I'm actually going to hook this back up again. And we'll try and get these wires in at least somewhat cleanly. And then the battery pack in behind. Push it down a little bit, and that should give enough room for our big chunky pommel. Like I said, I had to add the weight to it just to make it feel a little bit more balanced. It's still not perfect, but it's going to have to do. This other piece on the other end, I decided to go with these brass pieces because I found this little thumb screw I really liked. The brass doesn't really match anything else on here, but again, I like that sort of home-built bodge job look, so I decided to go with it. I think it actually ends up looking pretty good. Have this set up to hopefully just slide right through and come out on the other side there. Like I said, this other bit is just a little thumb screw. Really, all that's in there to do is keep the pommel from sliding off. It doesn't need to be, very tight or very strongly on there. So there we go. We've got the hilt basically assembled. I'm going to set these tools aside. Well, no, I'm not, because I need this one. And we can take the blade and slide that down inside. Now, I was talking about having a couple of screws sticking out. One of them is here. That goes into the emitter, as I'm sure you saw as I put it together. The other one is a thumb screw further up here. This is one of the two blade retention. There we go. One of the two blade retention screws that I used. Originally, I only had one on there, but because I'm using cheap materials, I'm using plastic, I'm using PVC. It doesn't all stick together, fit together really, really nicely. So what I found is while you were swinging this around, it was creaking a little bit, and that was kind of embarrassing. So I added a second blade retention screw. It's a set screw, like I used on most of the other screws in this project. It just helps keep the blade more secure, keeps it from creaking. So there we go. That is the finished assembled lightsaber. Aside from the touch-ups that I will be doing, it is basically done. I'll move my soldering iron out of the way. I'm going to switch my light off here above my head, and we'll switch this on so you guys can check it out. Ha! It doesn't work. We've got a short somewhere. Alright, well, I apologize for the delay in debuting this saber. I failed to employ perhaps my most important tool, my tweezers, in pulling down the circuitry inside to pull everything away from each other. We were getting, I think, a short circuit between a couple of uncovered solder connections. That's why they need to be covered in the final version, but for now they aren't. Anyway, should be good to go. It's reassembled. I'm going to switch my light off again, and we are going to switch it on. And there we go. Looks, I tell you, as usual, looks better on camera. But nice pink color in the blade, good color down the length. We've got the button lighting up there on the hilt. Weight's good, especially with this shorter blade. It feels really, really good. Yeah, so there we go. That is my mostly finished lightsaber blade for about $50. Actually, we'll cut the difference. We'll say $55 to put all this together. Now, granted, because I'm doing this for the first time, it costs a bit more than $55. Yeah, I had to buy a lot of different components to experiment with, so my actual overall investment in this project is substantially more than $50. But This saber by itself is 50, we'll say, worth of components. Again, assuming my labor is free, which labor is always free, right? Because again, this has been a ton of fun to put together. I've enjoyed every moment of looking up things, shopping around, getting them delivered, experimenting, and finally assembling it all together. Definitely got a lot more to do. I've got 3 more of these lightsabers to build. 2 smaller ones, they're going to be hopefully exactly the same, and then 1 larger 2-bladed saber to complete the set for this costume. I'm going to be posting progress on those as I go. I'm actually making a fair amount of progress on them even as I make this video, but look for more pictures and videos from those here going forward in the near future. And if you've watched all my videos and watched me through the odyssey of putting this together, thank you for joining me. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit about something. I don't even know. And yeah, I've got a lightsaber. I'm pretty excited. Thanks for watching, guys. Lightsaber noise.